All right.
My guest today is Kevin Cole. I first met Kevin at Ole Miss, but it was early in the 70s, so don't ask me the year. We were both in music education and fortunately or unfortunately ran around with a lot of the same people, mostly musicians, I think. And Kevin is now successfully retired and lives in Oxford, Mississippi. And thanks for being here, Kevin. I hope you're doing well.
I am, Jim. Thank you for involving me on this project. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we'll see, won't
Yes.
we? Kevin, I know you're from Philadelphia. Tell me about growing up in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Well, first off, Philadelphia is just a small town in east central Mississippi. When I was there, maybe about 6,000 people there. And it was a nice little community. You knew a lot of people there, and it was a real safe place to be. As a kid, you could go riding your bike anywhere you wanted to. You could ride your bike to the movie theater and leave it sitting outside and be there when you came back. So it was just a real nice place to be until I guess in the mid 60s when we had the three civil rights workers that were murdered by the Klan, disrupted a whole lot. And we found out, really Philadelphia was not a town of hate. It was just a few people that made it that way. And, but it really hurt the reputation of Philadelphia. But it has risen above that since then, and it's a still a very nice little town to live in. Um, I grew up at Philadelphia High School, and the band program when I was there was extremely good. It was one of the top all superior bands in the state. I think Starkville had more superiors than us, and that may have been it. But it was a real good band program that I grew up in, which probably had a large influence on what I ended up doing. Um, and then my daddy owned the radio station there in Philadelphia. So as soon as I was old enough to have a broadcast license, I was a DJ uh, in a little small town. So I knew what was going on in town from being at the radio station. So it,
That's great.
yeah.
What kind of music did you play as a DJ?
Well, Daddy had listed his radio station as a community-minded radio station. So we had everything. You would have country music in the morning. You would have little pop music midday. You'd have some gospel music during noon, uh, and then easy listening. And then there'd be some your pop and rock music in the afternoon. We had one show. He had a show called the 1490 Club that came on at 5 o'clock, in which we would always have a black DJ come in and play. Would come in and spin the records, and that's a whole nother story right there that we could spin for a long time. So we played everything, and it was a 24-hour station, but we didn't stay on 24 hours. We would go like from 5 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night normally.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. I was originally from a small town in Mississippi up over in the Delta, uh, right next door to Cleveland,
Mm-hmm.
Rouville.
I
So,
know.
so
Yeah.
when you talk about small towns, I know whereof you speak. Now,
Yeah.
I'm sure you went to the Neshoba County Fair.
Absolutely. Yes. My grandmother had bought a spot in 1948 on Founders Square, and that was I say 1948. She bought a it was a little one shack, one story dirt floor cabin there, and we have rebuilt it twice since then. My grandfather ended up building one in 1954, and then we just rebuilt uh, the one that we have now. About I guess it was about 15 years ago, but we're right there on Founders Square. So I go to the fair every year for a little while.
That's great. And now you're also a guitar player, Kevin.
Yes, and that has to do with the fair. I was walking around the fairground. I went down to Happy Hollow, a friend's cabin, and I saw these guys out there on the front porch, and they both had acoustic guitars, and there were all these girls sitting around them. And I said, "Hey, that's what I want to do." So I went back down the next day, and my friend Margaret, she showed me. She had her guitar out there, and she showed me three chords: G, C, and D, and that was it. I was hooked. I mean, I could play Wild Thing, I could play Louie Louie, I could play half the rock and roll songs with just those three chords. So uh, that
Probably more than half, I think. You could play every Kiss song that was ever recorded, I think.
Probably so.
That's great. And now, what instrument did you play in the school band?
When I started in band, I played trumpet. I wanted to be a drummer, but Daddy was against that all the way. And my band director tried me out on the instruments. And basically, he said I could play trumpet or trombone, but I was a little bitty kid at that time, and I probably couldn't reach fourth position. So I ended up playing trumpet. So, and I'm glad I did.
My brother wanted, Daddy bought him a trombone. That's the way Daddy worked, is that he would show up with an instrument and say, "Here, do this."
Yeah.
My little brother said his arms were too short to play trombone, but really he just didn't want to practice.
Uh
huh. So, um, what? Who were the people that encouraged you to study music?
Well, I guess first off, it'd have to be my mother. My mother was a music major. She had gone to the W back in the days,
Oh
and
yeah.
she was a double major. She majored in voice and piano.
Oh my.
I grew up in a house with my mama playing the piano and singing. And of course, I grew up in a radio station, so I got exposed to all kinds of music. But my second band director, Hal Reese, uh, noticed that I had some talent, and he really pushed me to play some really good literature when I was a little kid. He was throwing these solos in front of me that I didn't realize they were supposed to have been that hard, basically. And I practiced and practiced and practiced, and he pushed me. And then later on, he was talking to me. He was a principal then, and he was just talking to me and says, I think you can do a good job as a band director. You need to get out there and find out if you can do that or not. And so he was one of the ones that really kind of pushed me in that direction.
That's great. What made you decide to go to Ole Miss?
Uh, I was don't hold this against me now, but I was first enrolled at Mississippi State. Okay, and
Everybody has skeletons in their closet.
yeah, so me and my best friend were going to room together at State, and it just so happened that John McCauley, who was at Ole Miss,
I remember John.
yeah, he's from Philadelphia. And he had come down with Luther Snavely, who was the band director at the time at Ole Miss. I think this was Luther's second year at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Came down to Philadelphia to the band hall. And he said, I want to speak to your seniors. And I went into the office and I was talking to Dr. Snavely and John McCauley. And Snavely just came right to the point. He says, look, I know how much Mississippi State's offering you for a scholarship. I already know what they give people. Well, I'm going to do 3 times that. And I'm going to keep raising it. You stay, as long as you stay in the band, each year I'll try and increase it for you. So, we sat down and we did the math, and I said, well, that means I could go to Ole Miss cheaper than I could go to State. Well, that was an influencing thing. But my brother David, I don't know if you remembered him or not. He was a trumpet player also. My brother David was already at Ole Miss, and he said, come up one weekend. So I came up, I think it was like the first weekend in April. And I came up and spent the weekend with him up there. Of course, we went out to Sardis and we walked all over campus. And you know how beautiful Ole Miss is in April. It's just gorgeous. And then I'll be honest with you, all those young co-eds walking around in halter tops didn't hurt either at all.
Wearing shorts, that's right.
When I came back from my weekend with my brother, I changed my mind and said, I'm going to Ole Miss. So
that's a great story. So did you ever consider any other career?
I did. I seriously thought about doing computer science, which people looked at me back in the early 70s. Computers, there's no thing, nothing's going to happen with computers. And because my daddy on the radio station, I ended up learning how to work on equipment.
Yeah.
Equipment. And so I liked that part of it. And I wanted to learn how computers worked and everything. But I ran into a large snag when you open up some of these things, some of these electronic things, and you start looking at them. And all of a sudden you see all these different colored wires. Well, I'm red, green, colorblind. I couldn't read the wires.
Oh, no.
So there's no way I can do that. So but I enjoyed the electronic part of it. I really did.
What was the first computer game you remember?
I guess Pong.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
I think Pong probably.
Have you seen that there is a new version of Pong out now?
No.
There is. I saw my grandson playing it the other day. He was just messing with his phone, and I kept looking, and I said, "What are you playing, bud?" And he said, "Oh, it's just this little sort of a tennis game."
Uh-huh.
I thought, well, wait a minute, somebody's redoing Pong. That's exactly what it was. Uh,
Uh,
so, what goes around comes back around, doesn't it?
I guess so.
Yeah. So, what was your first teaching job, Kevin?
I went to Independence High School, the Independence, Mississippi. I followed the great David Wilson.
David Wilson.
He had been there the year before,
In
and
the same trailer, I guess.
same double wide trailer. And in David's situation, when he got there, the year that he got there, the principal basically fired the band,
Yeah.
and David had to start from scratch. So here I was, the second year of scratch of trying to put this together. But the we couldn't get a schedule that would work there. It just we couldn't get all the kids to be there at one time. And I tried to explain to the principal. I said, "Well, that's about like having your quarterback and your defensive line show up at practice, and then the next practice you have the offensive line and the defensive backs. It's not working. I've got to have the band to get or give me just all the woodwinds and all the brass, just something. But we couldn't get a formula to make it work out there, and it was hard. It was very hard, but
I can imagine.
year I got through it and I learned.
I understand challenges, especially in small towns and band programs. Uh, it seems like the problem was more administrative than anything else.
Yeah,
Well, and well, those problems continue today, I think, in a lot of places.
they do.
Yeah, but so, who was your mentor at that time?
Well, I didn't. No one came out to help me at Independence, but David Lance and Elva K. Lance had just taken the jobs at Senatobia, which is right there in the county. So there was a lot of times that I would go by their band hall and ask David a lot of questions. Of course, Elva K. was a new director, just like I was that year. But I would go by and ask David things. He had been an assistant with Mickey Grove down at Kosciuszko for a long time. So he was pretty knowledgeable and he knew what he was doing. His bands were always great. So that helped me out a lot. But after I left there and went to Alcorn Central, Ernest Cadden had just started doing Henco. So he was living just right there in that area. So Ernest Cadden came by and helped me a lot my second and third year of teaching. He was a great influence on me.
You know that that's a story that I've heard again and again and again, especially for new band directors. If you find somebody or if somebody finds you and shows you what to do and the right way to do it, then that'll go a long way toward you being successful later on in the band life. But if you don't, if you insulate yourself in your band room and never open the door, except to let students in and out, you're not going to be doing that job successfully for very long.
No, you won't.
Yeah. So can you describe your experience, your first 3 years of teaching?
Oh, I was terrible. I remember getting on the podium for the first time at Independence, and all of a sudden I started thinking in my head, I don't know how to warm up a band. I don't know what I'm doing. So I had to think back. What did we used to do when I was in high school? Oh yeah, we played concert B flat scale.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Let's play the concert B flat scale, and they look at you real funny. So then you realize you got to reteach the concert B flat scale. So I really fell on my face the first few years, just trying to figure out what I was doing. And I was always fortunate the schools that I taught at Independence and at Alcorn Central the first years of my career that I had students that were understanding and students that were willing to do and follow.
Yeah.
and the funny thing is, I still communicate with some of those students that I taught over 45 years ago. We'll still holler happy birthdays and Merry Christmas to each other. They still think the world of me, and I think the world of them. But I was learning, and they were at the same time, and
Well, you sort of grew up together, didn't
we did. We did.
you? I remember my first 3 years. I was still trying to figure out what I didn't know,
Yes.
and and I could have done things in a much more efficient manner, I think, if
Hmm.
I had learned to talk to somebody sooner.
Yeah, I agree.
So, what are some of the positive things you've noticed about music education in the last few years?
Well, you know, uh, we both know that if you decide you're going to do it this certain way, and this is the way I'm always going to do it, you're going to fail.
Oh yeah,
And that's one of the
spectacularly.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I have been noticing with a lot of the younger directors that I'm seeing is that they already realize the generation of students that I'm teaching is immediate gratification people,
Yeah,
and they're learning, and I like the way that they're working to find ways to communicate with these students and to keep them, interested in what they're doing, even though you're not going to get as much immediate gratification as you do off of playing it on your phone. And like I said, there were a lot of clinics in that direction at our state band clinic this year, and I was really happy to see that they realize this is a different We can't teach the way the people taught before, and I'm not talking about you're going to warm up the band pretty much. You got to tune the band, all that stuff stays the same, but the way you reach the students is different, and they realize they have got to be ready to move along with this because they're constantly changing. And I know from when I started teaching to when I retired, how much my teaching technique changed, because the students changed, the generations changed.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that younger teachers are catching on to that. I was pretty slow to change things until
Yeah.
I was forced to.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
well, so what do you enjoy most about teaching band and music?
I think the biggest thing that I enjoyed, that the advantage that we have is that we get to see the students in most cases from sixth grade through 12th grade.
Yeah,
Regular classroom teachers usually see them for 1 year.
at the
We
most.
we got to see these young people from their sixth grade through most of their teenage years. We make an influence on them. We can have an impact on them, and hopefully in a very positive way. And we watch them grow up.
Sure,
You know, that's the advantage that we had that other teachers don't have. The classroom teachers don't get that opportunity. And I think that's one of the things I enjoyed the most. And like, I don't do Facebook, my wife does, and she'll sit there and tell me a student's name that we had. Okay, they just had another kid, and you keep up with them. I mean, they become part of your family in a sense. Uh,
you're
but
right about that. And
yeah,
some of these kids I used to teach are claiming to be grandparents, and I know that's a lie.
that's got to be.
Yeah. But I know exactly what you're talking about. And that little 6 year band term or 7 year band term is pretty much the developmental years of kids you're dealing with. And that's a great way to put it. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's another plus to point out to some of these kids that are thinking about what they want to do when they grow up.
Yeah.
What are some of the things about teaching you just don't miss at all?
Number one, Friday night football games and it's rain. No matter what you decide, it's wrong.
That's right.
That I don't miss fundraising. Uh, Other than that, the rest of it I enjoyed, I guess. So yeah, the rainy Friday nights. I didn't have that many really cold football games. I can remember a few
Yeah.
where I got cold, but not that many. Uh, but yeah, that's pretty much it. The rest of it, I really enjoyed it, and there's so much of it I miss.
Yeah, I think the relationships are something that I miss as much as anything else.
Hmm.
That and the feeling of accomplishment, when that kid gets to be an 11th or 12th grader and you see them mature almost on a daily basis,
Yes.
musically and from a personality standpoint. And that's something that I really enjoyed watching.
Yeah. Me too. Me too.
So, uh, what are some of the most memorable moments from your teaching career?
Well, I remember going to this one small county school, and I want you to understand, I was one of those band directors that I liked going to the schools that needed help. I never walked into a program that was already well developed, and I loved taking on the other jobs. And I had gone to this small little country school, and when I got there, I think there was maybe like 45 in the band, in the high school band, and I only had like I think I had three drummers in there. So, so I'm trying to, okay, let me work on some stuff here. So I went to the guidance counselor and I said, okay, there's a study hall during band during the same period. Tell me some names of some students in there that need to be involved in something. And they did. They gave me some names. So I went and talked to these students, and I talked four of them into being in the band, even though they could not read music. And I put them on bass drums. This was the pitch bass drum thing had just really taken off by
Oh
then.
yeah, yeah.
So I put them on bass drums, and but they didn't. I didn't really worry about teaching them how to read music right now. We learned four patterns. Okay, pattern one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. That's pattern one. Pattern two, four, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Here's the next one was tricky. 1, 3, 2. They learned four patterns. The whole show, all they played was four patterns, and we just alternated them with the music, and they knew what the patterns were. And believe it or not, they made a superior at marching festival that year, at a marching contest that year. It's the first time the drumline ever made a superior. And
That's
they eventually did learn how to read the music. The other drummers did teach them how to read music. And one of them ended up being a tenor player that I was just amazed. I mean, he was a mathematical genius in the school, and it was all mathematical to him. He took off on tenors like crazy. It was incredibly good. Another one of my favorite moments was at that school. The band program there really was pretty sad before I got there. And the first year I was there, uh, we were fortunate. This is back in the old days when we did state band festival. We did everything, concerts like
Listen, I went through that
yeah,
for 3 years in high school.
yeah. So we were still doing that at the time. So so I'd get okay. I've had a year, almost a full year there of trying to get their tone better and everything. And they made the first one ever, first superior ever in the history of that school in marching. We did make a superior in marching, and you would have thought they won the Super Bowl.
That's right.
It was just amazing the reaction from them, and it melted my heart because it was yeah. So
That's great. That's a great story. I like that. Did you ever have a parent tell a kid that they would rather they didn't learn how to read music, they just wanted them to play by ear?
I actually had one that was a close along that line. Yes, that well, I want my child to learn at their own pace how they want to do it, and experiment with that. And I said, good luck with that. So
Yeah, that's right.
this is the way we're going to do it. So
Well, people do have some funny ideas about music and about talent.
yeah,
I know the very first time I would talk to band parents and I would tell them that talent is not necessarily, or in most cases, not necessarily a lightning strike event. It's acquired over time and by constant application of the techniques that they're taught in class.
Hmm.
That means self-discipline and
Right.
practice.
Yeah.
I know I could see them rolling their eyes, they didn't do it out loud, so to speak.
Yeah.
I know they didn't believe me until later on when little Johnny could play, uh, some music that they didn't think was possible. But
Uh-huh.
it, it was
Yeah.
great to see anyway. So, what level student did you enjoy teaching most, Kevin?
Beginners, sixth graders. I love, I love. Now, don't get me wrong. I enjoy doing the high school band, middle school band, seventh grade band. That's another story. But sixth grade band, I love the beginners because every week they learn something new. Every week they learn to do something they hadn't been able to do before, and it's just you just can just have so much fun with them
Yeah.
and enjoy teaching them. It was just
So predictable too for
yeah,
so many of them that they'll hit those highs and then those lows, and when you need to give them a pep talk
uh-huh,
because it almost always happens to everybody at the same time.
yeah, yeah. Love the beginners. Love them.
That's great. And then when parents hear the difference in the sixth grade band and then the seventh grade band, and it is sort of an eye-opening moment for them too.
It is.
Yeah.
It,
So what do you think are some things that most band directors need to know about teaching but don't?
it's not as much about the music as they think it is. It's more about the students.
Yeah,
The students come first. And that's hard for some people to grasp and try and figure it out. But once you figure it out, everything else falls in place. I mean, you think about as a job as a band director, how much time is actually spent with music, and then how much time do you spend helping students?
sure.
You know, it's not all just about the music. We've got it's about the students. It's all about them because they're not going to all end up being professional musicians.
You don't want them to be.
No, we're teaching them to be responsible adults.
I used to tell my beginners, they would invariably ask, "Why are you teaching? Why do you like doing this so much?" And I would tell them, just as my standard answer, that I used to watch American Bandstand, and I got so tired of everybody saying, when asked, "Why do you like this song?" It's
Mhm.
always because it's got a good beat and you can dance to it. You
Yeah.
have to be more intelligent than that. You
Yes.
need to know a better answer.
Hmm.
So, of all the administrators that you work for, what were the characteristics that you found most appealing?
The administrator that I still think the world of, especially, he had a very simple philosophy. I'm going to hire good people, and then I'm going to get out of their way.
I believe that so much.
And it worked so well. So,
Yeah,
I wish I could say I had a career of nothing but great administrators, but I didn't. There were some that were just, I don't know, they had too much ego built into them, and they were not concerned about the students in the school. They were more concerned about their image.
right,
It's
right.
unfortunate that there's some out there like that, but
Oh, there are, and there still are. And yeah, I remember somewhere after I'd been teaching for about 6 or 7 years, I was complaining to my mother. Mothers get to hear all the good, bad, and the ugly about teaching. And I was complaining, and she said, "Well, you need to remember one thing." And I said, "What's that, Mama?" And she said, "Everybody in life has a purpose, but sometimes that purpose is just to be a bad example."
I like that.
So, Hey, Kevin, you have any final words of advice for somebody just beginning their teaching career or wanting to get rejuvenated about teaching in general?
Well, one of the things that you touched on just a little bit is that, and this, I would encourage this. I taught, for a few years adjunct at Ole Miss, and one of the classes I taught was conducting, and I encourage them so much. Don't be afraid to ask for help. There are directors out here like myself and you and countless other people we can name that would love to help you if you'll just ask. Like you said, don't isolate yourself away from everything and think you can do it by yourself. No, it's not that way. You can't do it that way. You need help. You need people. I'll have students nowadays. It's gotten to the point where they'll send me copies of the scores and they'll send me recordings, and I'll sit here on my computer and I'll talk them through the music and tell them do this, change that, check the pitch on this, and I don't even have to be there. But so it's not like I got to keep my band hall clean because somebody's coming by today. No, you don't have to worry about that. But ask for help. Ask for help. Believe it or not, we're there to help. There's a lot of us out there willing to help. Uh,
Sure.
so that's one of the biggest things. Don't think you have to do it alone.
And that's something that's really hard to overcome. Just because you graduate doesn't mean you know a whole lot,
Right.
much less everything.
One of the biggest things that helped me in the Northeast Band Directors Association. I don't know if you remember Charles Ellington or not. He was a band director at Corinth for a long time.
Yeah.
He had this camper, and he would come to the clinic in the camp in this camper and just park it there on the college campus. And all these band directors, me and Ernie Reese, all those young band directors, we would bring our cassette tapes and our scores. And all these other older band directors are sitting in there, and we're putting in our tapes, and they're telling us what to do. And they're not sitting there criticizing or anything. They're helping us. And they're saying, right here, when I played this song, this is what I did in this section, and things like that. And we learned so much listening to each other's recordings. And our rehearsals were not perfect, no, but that's when they need to be listened to.
Yeah.
So we would have it was a wonderful time to learn a lot.
Listen, man, it took me 5 years to even believe that it was a good idea to tape rehearsals and listen to them yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I did, not only did the band get better, so did I.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Well, Kevin, listen, I appreciate you taking up your time today to talk to me about this.
Okay.
Man, anything I can do to get you another guitar gig, let me know.
Okay. Well, I've got a little blast from the past for you.
Oh man, get out of town. Me standing next to
Yes.
Jimmy
Yeah.
Simpson.
Now, one year when I was doing one of the years I was doing the jazz band, the second jazz band at Ole Miss, the Collegians, I really thought about seriously reenacting this album, but I could not find all the arrangements.
Yeah,
But I did find some of these arrangements. I couldn't find all of the arrangements, but I really wanted to reenact the entire album and replay do the whole concert again. But I wore that record out playing it so many times. I think,
me and you both.
yeah, I got my hands on that when I was I think a senior in high school. Somehow I got my hands on this thing, and I cannot tell you how many times I listened to it.
Man, if you get a minute, can you send me a CD of that?
Sure,
I
sure.
would appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. Send me your. I'll get that sent to you.
My record is lost somewhere in the depths of time. I cannot remember where it went.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
That was one strong band, let me tell you.
I know it was, man. And me sitting there learning, goodness gracious, it was a great group of guys.
We learned a lot in that jazz band now.
No kidding, man.
Woo.
Yeah. Well, listen, buddy, I appreciate it. I
All
hope you have
right.
a good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.